Hey everyone, James Lucas here with another gameplay video. On the left we have Raul running his very familiar Han Chewie deck. He's been making some changes to it. He has it a lot more refined, a lot more flowing. I absolutely love where this deck is. He's switched to Elite Han, he's made some deck changes, and he's even continuing to refine from here. And so I really like how this deck has kind of been his project this whole set, and it's gone from a deck that you can win with if you love the deck. I know we all have kind of those pet projects in different games. I had plenty in X-Wing. It's a list that very few other people are playing, but is definitely very tournament viable. Well, this deck is slowly sliding up to the point where I think anyone could take it. You don't have to know all the ins and outs to be able to just do very, very well with it. And that's really cool that he's stuck with it this long. He's really worked on it and really created something cool. It can last to endgame, and because it can last to endgame in this meta, it does change the dynamic, and it does kind of mess with some of the meta choices right now, and I love that. On the right, I'm running Palpatine. I love running Palpatine. I pulled him probably about a month ago to my second copy, and have been messing around with him ever since. And what I like about him is that he requires finesse to play optimally. He's one of those decks where decisions aren't easily made for you. Now, I will say the really tough decisions, the really kind of top, 99th percentile decision making, doesn't give a ton of returns over someone who just picks the deck up, tries it out, and doesn't fully understand it. So that is kind of one of the downsides. The other downside, I think, to the deck is it builds itself right now. And part of that is meta dependent. You need the healing, you need Autogunga. You're going to run Holocrons, you're going to run probably Force Lightnings, you're probably going to run Mind Probes or Force Throw. I've seen decks without Lure Power. I think Lure Power is amazing. You're going to run Dark Presence. It's too good of a card. You're going to have Feel Your Anger. You're going to have Isolation. All of those things are pretty big. So that is a little bit of the downside. But I still think that the finesse of the damage attribution, the letting your opponent make decisions to give you insight, those kind of things are really fun about this deck. Raul's starting really with control heavy right away. He unpredictables into a daring escape, removing what was a 3-ranged, but then the daring escape with the reroll, I actually roll into the exact same results. So he starts off with a fast hands and actually just fast hands the resource right away. And now he has 3 damage sitting on the table. And here I decide to resolve the +1 with the 2 discard, even though he only has 2 cards left in hand. I don't want to leave that dice out on the board. It's something that is not necessary right now, but I'm not going to reroll that die, so why leave it out there for any danger? Nothing can really mess with Lure Power too much. Like, he can't reversal Lure Power, he can't Chewie Lure Power, but at the same time, it's just kind of a nice habit to get into, even if it's not necessary at this moment, because I don't want to forget it when it really can matter. And so there we go. We see Palp rolling in. And this game ended up having a lot more glare than I expected it to. We checked it at the beginning, and then unfortunately I adjusted the camera a little bit after that, and then we got a little bit of glare. So feel free to use the graphics instead of trying to read the dice. I went through and made sure I had every dice side accurately, and I'll continue to update that graphic so it looks better and better. And so there you could see he did play Let the Wookiee Win. I really like that card more and more right now. I liked it right at the beginning of Awakenings, and then it just lost all impact as the meta continued to evolve. And now I think we're back to a higher impact on that card because of Luke, Vader, and Palp all being very popular, all not wanting to give up their dice. And the other side is people are running less upgrades now. Second Chance, Force Speed, and Fast Hands. While some of them are kind of Force Speed, you can get rid of with Let the Wookiee Win, but if that's your only upgrade, you're running so much less than before that your upgrade dice and your character dice are so much more important on those big hitting characters. And so here you can see I do the 2 damage to Han. I'm going to continue to talk about that damage allocation as the game goes on, and kind of how to lead your opponent and how to gain information from how they assign. But this is one of those situations where if they've played against Palpatine before, you can almost guarantee what the result is going to be. Right here, what he did is he put 2 and 2, so both of his characters sit at 8 health. That's very expected early game. In fact, if they don't do it, I'd be a little bit worried, because then it might mean that I'm in for a very weird game They might have something very interesting in their hand. They might be trying to draw attention for some reason, or they might be trying to get me to put damage in the wrong spot. Or it could just be, frankly, a misplay. So here we have Maz's Goggles. Maz's Goggles is a very scary upgrade for me. Not because of all of its amazing focus sides, but because it actually can do just a ton of damage with its ability to remove events. So you can see here, I'm taking turn resources, I'm getting to 5 resources, I discard a Mind Probe, it's guaranteed that a Rise Again is coming here, or I'm fainting one. And there you go. You see it first action. I cannot wait for that at all. I like to roll Palpatine out first action as much as possible in this deck, but at the same time, I cannot wait because he has Disrupt sides on Han, and I've played Han plenty of times to know that whenever you want damage, he rolls Disrupt, and whenever you want Disrupt, he rolls damage, but even so, it could be a really big deal here. And actually, here we go. He does get the Disrupt side, so it would have been a huge problem for me. Being able to sit at around that 5 damage threshold for Palpatine is huge, especially as the game goes on. I get more established, I have a little bit more time to play removal cards, and really start to lock the board down. And so Raul here is building up his characters as time goes on. It's been a little tough. He's rolled the 3-for-1 already. He's had to make some of those decisions. He's had to play events to try and slow me down really early on. And so that can be really tough for this deck to handle because it does slowly whittle away at its resources. And without the ability to pay for its damage dice, that can be a huge deal. But it also does mean that it is a little slower to get upgrades out. Its dice are very, very impactful for how little cost it can be, though. So he does drop the DL44, getting me to remove my Mind Probe dice. Mind Probe is not a big deal against Palpatine deck. I would have much rather had Lightning in at this point. But here he goes. He removes another one. I just get rid of the discard. He's discarding most of his hand down at this point. I'm not super worried about it. And moving those shields is a little interesting. If he didn't have the ability to build Han back up, that's a pretty big deal. That usually shows that he really wants... So if he did not build Han back up to 2 shields, that would have told me that he really wants to keep Chewie alive. I'm not sure what that would mean. Maybe he's holding a Vibro Knife. Maybe he just wants a character that has a little bit more base health on the board, or he knows that he can build Han up next round. It's a little riskier against Palpatine, but if he's confident that his deck can do that, that's a pretty big deal. There you can see I do the 5 damage there to Han. I am choosing to go after Han in this game. I don't always choose to do that against his deck, but now that he's moved Elite over to Han, it's a little bit easier of a choice, and I know he's been running through cards very quickly so far this game, and so I'm going to continue putting the pressure on Han to try and continue that. And as you can see here, he cannot afford that 3-for-1 right now, so he's going to have to reroll to try to be able to even pay for it. And that can be really tough because you don't want to also reroll the DL44 die because it has 2 blank sides, and that can be a little bit tough. And Han with 2 resource sides, pretty good chance, but there you can see I have no resources, so that disrupt side does nothing, and then he gets 2 of the 3-for-1s that really slow down how much damage is dealt. There you can see that I'm actually taking the opportunities to play cards like Dark Presence, which I just did. When I know he's out of actions, he has no cards in hand, he's going to take 1 more action. He needs to continue the damage going on. Giving up 1 damage on Palpatine can be huge, absolutely huge. So I'm reading that he probably can't give that up, and that I can still claim the battlefield. It is a little bit of a risk, but at the same time, Palpatine does warrant those kind of all-in plays against him. You have to resolve what you have, even if you don't get the resource or don't get the battlefield. And so there you go. You can see now I have the 3-for-1 and the +1. That's pretty big. I can get Han down to 1 health, and so, or I can do a ton of damage to Chewie, get him to 4 health, and really spread the damage out. Some decks you want to spread. I usually like to burst though. And I like to burst because it makes your opponent make weird decisions or even poor decisions. And there you go. Immediately, I push him down to 1 health. And if he didn't take that resource, maybe I would have done it on Chewie. Or maybe I would have tried to reroll first to try and actually just straight out kill Han. But now here, he has a few options. We can kind of see his hand here. He has some removal. He does have another fast hands, but he also has second chance. And so if I force the play of second chance here, the only control card he can play against me is He Doesn't Like You. And while Palpatine can win really early, he likes to win really early. If I can go longer in the game without taking damage, if he has to play he doesn't like you, or Lothcat. I'm sorry, Lothcat Mouse. If he plays Lothcat Mouse, that's a really big deal because he has less dice to reroll. He has less options to kind of handle me later down the road. But then also, Palp is taking less damage. He's taking a lot less damage, and the longer the game goes on, the more damage he takes. The more behind any deck against Palp gets if they're playing things like Second Chance. And so I'm really happy that forced that out because now we're sitting here with a 3-ranged and a resource, both very big results. I definitely want to keep the resources moving in this deck, and so now I have a choice. I can try and shoot at Han or see what happens, and so I wanted to see what he did here because what happens is I can shoot Chewie, not waste the 2 damage, not trigger Second Chance just yet, but give him the opportunity to, and really put him in a bad spot because it does make it so Chewie would go down to 1 health if he put both damage there. That's huge because he has to sign the damage, whatever I roll next turn, and so Chewie's likely going to go down pretty quickly. So I do have a decision to make. I could just trigger Second Chance, though. That is a totally acceptable choice of the 3 damage. It feels like a waste, but getting those Second Chances off the board is pretty big. And Sorrel does have the 3-for-1 there. Palpatine sitting at 6 is a pretty big deal. Like I said, you want to be below that 5 health range. And you want to keep that going as long as possible. But since it's a little hard to see, I did drop Force Illusion there. Force Illusion is a big deal. It definitely does help out a lot. I don't like to burn it on a ton of damage because I want to keep cards in my deck, especially against Han Chewie where the game can go on really long. So there you go. You see, I do assign the 3 damage to Chewie and then let him assign the other 2. And so both characters are almost gone at this point, and so when they bubble up evenly, it does give you some burst windows. But this is kind of an interesting call here. I got the reversal and Second Chance really early out of hand in this game, and so I know that he has no other Second Chance in hand, and I know he has none in deck, so he's not going to be top decking one. The only way he can get it is from the battlefield, and so I'm putting the pressure on here because his characters are going to die very quickly. I've opened up the avenue to burst Han down and just put him off the board. Or I've also opened up the avenue of now most of the damage does have to be assigned to Han, so no matter what I roll next turn, I'm still gaining momentum. I'm still in a pretty good spot. And with that Force Illusion out, I'm going to sit at 6 health, or 6 damage, and having 9 health left on a character is a big deal, especially when, at this point, I've gone through a ton of shields, I've gone through 1 Second Chance, and his characters are both almost dead. I've gone through so much health in this game. And so that can really, really start to put the pressure on. So he does take the resource, he does do the 3. I immediately trigger Force Illusion. I don't even, that's not even a thought that crosses my mind. I definitely want to hit that right here and stay at this low damage. It adds a little bit of demoralizing effect on your opponent. It gets tougher and tougher to deal with looking across the board and seeing a character that is the lowest health pool of any competitive deck on the board sitting just constantly at this low damage threshold. Unfortunately, I did discard the other Force Illusion there, and that does put me in kind of an odd spot. And then you can see the special, the +1, and the 3 range. That's a pretty scary result to be looking across the board at. So it does put Raul in a little bit of a tough spot here because I do have 2 ways of killing Chewie right now, and he has to be careful because I also can put him in a spot where he has to kill either Han or Chewie just by resolving damage, so he does need to get these shields out. And that's exactly what he's doing. He's trying to add that up a little bit, make it tougher to kill both of his characters. I may be able to burst one down, maybe not. It does make it just a lot more manageable on his side of the board. And so he has been playing ambush cards, so he does still have 1 decision left to make. You can see he is holding 2 electroshocks, trying to decide what the best next move is. Chewie only has 3 damage left to kill, and so he does decide to roll him out. And then, actually, while we were having this game, we did discuss here, what's the best next step? And I do like that decision to roll Chewie out. If he had gotten damage, that would have been big. And with 3 cards left, that's exactly enough to kill Chewie. It is a tough spot. If he had played an Electroshock, I wouldn't have been able to get Chewie down that right there. But is he really delaying the inevitable, or could he have gotten a lot more damage? It's a slightly riskier play, but I do still like that play of, kind of giving me the Mind Probe and then going from there. And I definitely want to resolve the Mind Probe first because it's going to get less and less value as the rounds go on, especially against his deck. And so there you go. He did have to, whittle his character down to only 1 health left, and then he does shock the last die. So I have a decision to make here. I decided to play another upgrade, knowing that he could just claim and get second chance. And it's a little bit of a risk, but being a little bit more set up for endgame is something I definitely want. So I'm a little bit more okay with that because just having one more result that can have a big impact is really nice. And there you go. So you do see the Palp go to the 9 damage, and then I do claim, and I try and put my upgrade face up just to help with my note taking, and so my opponent doesn't forget right away what it was, and so I actually do just put a Force Illusion right back on top of my deck. And so there you go. Raul does re-roll into a blank. That was his last card in hand, so it will go to the next round. That can be a really tough situation to be in as you're taking more and more damage with Palp here, because now that I only have 6 health left, it does put me in a much, much tougher spot. One thing to note here, though, is I talked about how important that Rise Again is early in the game. So I Force Illusion for 3 health and Rose Again for 5. So with no mitigation, Palp would be dead right now. But without Rise Again, he would still be alive. With fast hands, that's a big deal. He could just roll the 2, roll the 3, end the game right here. So that is a very big play. However, you do see that Palp just has the ability to hold on for a long time. So there's the Vibro Knife into a straight Vibro Knife swap, trying to make sure he can get a couple extra shields. It means that I can no longer wipe him out by resolving just one of Palpatine's dice, which is really nice for him. There he goes into a Swiftness to get up to 3 shields. He's down to 2 cards in hand. Now Mind Probe, that special, once again only does 2 damage, not a big deal. And he Swiftness into nothing. I absolutely love that play. It's a little risky because of that 3-for-1, as you see. But at the same time, getting rid of 2 of my resources is nothing to laugh at. It is very good. And then I just isolation the other Han die right away, not worrying about it. I just want to make this difficult for him. And there's the Lothcat, so that does get rid of his last one. And then, of course, he's going to probably take one of Palp's dice here. Mind Probe only does 1 damage at this point. Palp's dice do 2 at a minimum. And so that's a pretty big deal there. And sitting on the 2+1s, also pretty nasty. And so there, yeah, he does get rid of the 2 discard. And so my gut reaction is to immediately reroll, so I do discard Holocron. And I do roll into 2 shields, so I can take 3 shields here if I want. And it was actually a mistake for me not to reroll one of the lure powers there. It does have a resource side. I have no resources, but Mind Probe is a 3-for-1. So I definitely want to do that. And so here you can see, I'm no longer worried about the battlefield. I let him get the second chance. I'm going all in on this turn. So he has 4 damage left. I only have 1 Palp die. And so we're just going to go for it here. And it's a little bit risky, but at the same time, I like the idea. I know he'll try and play the second chance there next round, but he'll have to drop Vibro Knife for it. He's not going to have enough resources just from turn resources to play it unless he swaps. And I'm really okay with that too, because yeah, it can suck to go through that again and again and again, but the more I have there, the better. So I do decide to reroll properly a little later, and I do get the resource again. It was a little risky to reroll Palp, but if I got the 3 or the 2, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. And so I was just playing the overall odds, and there you go. I got exactly 4 for game. It was a really interesting game, really fun to play, and I really, really liked how this one went. Playing against Second Chances Palp is one of the more difficult things you can do. There is more variance in that deck. Definitely recommend giving Palpatine a try. I know not everyone likes playing against it right now, but I think it's a very fun deck to play. I think it'll continue to be a fun deck, and I'm really hoping that it does stay, in that Tier 1 to Tier 2 bubble for a little while longer, because I would like to be able to continue to play that into the next couple sets. And thank you so much for watching. Please give me a like or subscribe if you like my video. Give me a thumbs down and tell me why down in the comments if you didn't like it, and I hope to see you in my next video.